Welcome to Russ's Kitchen. I've got a fantastic recipe here. This is my recipe for beef stew. It's absolutely delicious. It doesn't take a lot of ingredients and it really is very easy to cook. So let's have a look at what goes into this amazing beef stew. Now obviously star of the show is going to be the beef. I'm using beef shin. I've gone to my butcher today and he's given me some absolutely gorgeous beef shin. Look at the colour of that, it's fantastic. That, trust me, is going to taste absolutely amazing. Now, when we buy beef shin or chuck steak or anything like that from the butcher, what I would suggest you do is always buy slightly more than you actually need, because we're going to be trimming off some of this. Some of the outside might be a little bit hard, bits of hard fat, so best thing to do, buy a little bit more than you're actually going to require. Also, let's have a look. We've got red wine, Worcester sauce, about 2 tablespoons of tomato puree, a bouquet garni, and I'm using a tea bag style bouquet garni because I just don't have the fresh herbs at the moment, an onion, some plain flour, and about 400 ml of beef stock, which I've made up here. So the first thing that we need to do is finely cut up our onion, and then we're going to trim down this beef and then make the rest of the stew. Right, so we have trimmed up that beef and you can see how much we've actually got as wastage from that, which is why I tell you always buy slightly more than you actually need. For 2 people I need about 500 grams. When I bought it, it was about 560 grams. That seems to work out about right for me when you're buying things like shin or chuck steak. Always buy a little bit more. The flavour of this is why I use beef shin. It tastes incredible. It's well worth the extra time it takes to cook it, which in the case of this is going to be about 3 hours to 4 hours. Definitely no less than that, but it really is worth it. The next thing I need to do is dust this beef with flour, and then we're going to fry that off on a really high heat. While that's going on, I'm going to take our sliced onion, put it into a pot with a little bit of oil on a very low heat, just so that starts to soften down. Right, so I'm taking some plain flour and just sprinkle that over our beef reasonably generously. And then, using fingers, just give it a mix around so that the beef is coated. This is going to help it not stick to each other in the pan, but it's also going to provide a thickening agent for when it actually goes into the stew. So it's kind of like a multi-purpose thing. Once this is all coated in the flour, then we're going to be taking it over to the frying pan, which is now very hot. Put a little bit of oil, and then we're going to fry off this beef until it gets some colour. Really important that you get some colour nice and quickly on the outside of this beef, just to give it extra flavour. So now that our beef has got a little bit of colour on, we can now add it into the pot that's got the onion in. The onions are now starting to soften up really nicely. And at this stage I'm not really worried about anything sticking in this frying pan, because we're going to use a little bit of wine to deglaze anything that's left in the pan, because we're not going to waste any of this flavour that we're getting out of this beef. So the beef goes in. And now we can start to add more to this stew. So I'm going to turn the heat right up just for a little bit. I'm going to add in our wine. Now, when you're cooking with alcohol, when you're cooking with wine, especially wine, just make sure that it's a wine that you're going to be more than happy to drink if you were to have a glass. Now, the heat is up on this. I want to bring that wine up to a boil so that we start to evaporate some of that alcohol off. That's going to take about a minute or so. So as you can see now, that wine is bubbling away really, really nicely. We can go in with the rest of our ingredients. First of all, I'm going to take our beef stock. I'm not going to put all of it in. I'm just going to put in enough to cover all of that meat. We can always keep some back just in case it starts to go a little bit dry during the cooking process. Our tomato puree. This is a really important ingredient to add to beef dishes. A little splash of Worcester sauce. We're going to season it with a generous amount of salt and pepper. Give that a stir around. And now we're going to deglaze the frying pan, add that into the mixture, put in our bouquet garni, put the lid on, and then just let that cook away on a really, really low heat for, like I said, about 3 to 4 hours. So to deglaze this pan, it's got a few beef bits that have stuck to the bottom. Just put in a little bit of red wine, and then with the spatula just very gently work that red wine around the pan, and you'll see that all those little bits of beef will start to raise off. And because this is a very, very heavy based iron pan, it keeps the heat for quite a long time. And there we go, and we're going to tip this into our stew mixture. Our bouquet garni, lid on, very, very low heat, and that's going to cook away now for, like I said, 3 to 4 hours. So the stew has now been cooking for just over 2.5 hours. It's thickening up really nicely, it smells amazing, looks fantastic. So it's now time to think about adding some vegetables to our stew to make it a really hearty, warming dish. Now I'm going to be adding some sliced carrot to this. If you wanted to make this a fully one pot meal, then you could also add big chunks of potato at this stage. They are going to cook in that gravy and they will taste absolutely gorgeous. But for me, at this point, just going to put in some carrots and then just let it cook away for another half hour, 40 minutes at least, until the stew and the gravy starts to really thicken up. So in we go with our sliced carrot. So the stew has been cooking for about 4 hours. The meat is as tender as you would possibly want. It smells incredible. Let me just portion some up so you can see it. Oh my word. Yeah, just look at the colour of that. That gravy has gone so dark and so gorgeous. It's really something else. You need to try this. It tastes fantastic.